They told me not to share these stories. Said some things are better left buried in the silence of the trees. But the truth is, silence never saved anyone. It just hides what's still listening. I wasn't supposed to find them. The tapes, the journals, the half-finished recordings. They were tucked away in a police evidence box labeled, "Closed, natural causes." Natural. That's a funny word for what I heard on those tapes. For what I saw. This isn't fiction. Not the kind that lets you sleep easy when it's over. These are 10 stories. 10 people who thought they could escape the noise of the world by hiding in cabins, deep in the woods where no one would find them. Turns out that's exactly where it was waiting. I shouldn't have listened to all of them. I shouldn't have pressed play on the last one. But I did. And now the whispers don't stop when I turn off the lights. You'll think I'm lying. You'll tell yourself you'd be smarter, that you'd never stay the night after, hearing footsteps outside your window. But that's what they all said. Every single one of them. Before we start, just make sure you're alone. Check your doors, your windows. Because once you hear these stories, it's like the forest starts paying attention. You'll hear your house settle. You'll think it's the wind. It's not. These aren't campfire tales. They're confessions, evidence, and if my voice cuts out before the 10th story, well, you'll know I found another cabin, and maybe this time it found me first. Hey, you made it back. Good. I wasn't sure anyone would. Most people don't come back after hearing that first part. But maybe you're different. Maybe you need to know. Here's the deal. I've spent the last 6 months digging through a private server run by a now defunct ranger station out in Oregon. What I found were files, audio logs, distress calls, photos, all connected by one thing: cabins. Hidden ones, some listed as rentals, others erased from records completely. And every person who stayed in them vanished. I know what you're thinking. Fake stories, Halloween hype. I wish. The timestamps match missing persons reports. Some of the audio has police chatter in the background. They tried to cover it up, but the forest doesn't care about cover-ups. It remembers. So tonight, you'll hear 10 true stories. Real accounts from people who thought they were safe, isolated, off the grid. Their names have been changed, but the places are still there. I've marked them. If you're listening with your lights off, good. If not, you might want to fix that. These stories work best in the dark. And one last thing, if anything feels familiar, if a detail reminds you of somewhere you've stayed before, don't panic. Just write it in the comments. Someone else might have been there too. Now, let's start with the first one. The one that made me stop sleeping. I never wanted to go back there. But I guess that's how these things always start, with someone trying to outrun a memory. It was supposed to be a quiet weekend. My girlfriend Lena had found this cabin online. Cabin 7. Whisper Lake Retreat. The pictures showed mist-covered pines, an old wood stove, a lake that looked like glass. We were both burned out, tired of city noise. It was cheap. Too cheap. But when the listing said no cell service, total seclusion, we laughed. That's what we wanted. The drive took 6 hours. The last stretch was nothing but dirt and silence. When we arrived, the place looked exactly like the photos, except for one thing. There was an extra door. It was narrow, set into the hallway between the kitchen and the bedroom. The paint around it didn't match. Lena thought it was a closet, but the knob didn't turn. No keyhole, no hinges on our side. We unpacked, started a fire, tried to ignore it. That first night was peaceful until around 2 a.m. I woke to the sound of something dragging across the floor. Slow, deliberate. I thought it was Lena, but she was still beside me, breathing steady. The sound came again, from behind that locked door. I got up, flicked on my phone light, and pressed my ear against the wood. Nothing, just a faint warmth, like someone breathing on the other side. I told myself it was an animal, maybe a raccoon under the floorboards. We went back to bed. The next morning, Lena found scratches on the doorframe. Fresh ones. She joked about it, tried to make it light, but her hands were shaking when she poured her coffee. By the second night, the dragging turned into footsteps. Slow, heavy ones pacing back and forth. When I shouted, "Who's there?" The sound stopped immediately. Then 3 soft knocks. From the inside. I wanted to leave. Lena said it was just our nerves, isolation, overthinking. She put on a movie. I noticed she kept glancing toward the hallway, though every few minutes like she couldn't help it. Around midnight, the power went out, total black. I used my phone flashlight again, and for the first time, I noticed something I'd missed before. Faint marks near the baseboard, like dried. Handprints, small, child-sized, leading right up to that door. Lena wanted to leave then, but the storm outside had swallowed the road. We couldn't even see the car, so we waited it out. At 3:17 a.m., I heard the door creak. It didn't open all the way, just enough for a thin line of darkness to show between the frame and the wall. Then a voice whispered, "It's my room." I don't remember grabbing the flashlight. I don't remember screaming. I just remember the sound of Lena's footsteps pounding behind me as we ran through the rain, past the tree line until the cabin lights were gone. The next day we came back with a local sheriff. He looked tired, annoyed, like he'd done this before. When we showed him the door, he frowned. Then he said something I'll never forget. There's no cabin 7 on the property. He pried the door open with a crowbar. Behind it was nothing. No room, no space, just rotted boards and earth. Like the cabin had been built against a hillside. But before he shut it, I saw something in the dirt. A photograph. A little girl, maybe 8 years old, standing in that same hallway, hand on the doorknob. And behind her, through the crack in the door, something looking out. We never went back. The listing disappeared the next week. But sometimes, when I scroll through rental sites late at night, I see a familiar photo, the same lake, the same view. Only now there's one more door. When I rented that cabin, I didn't plan to speak to anyone for a week. Silence was the point. After the divorce, after the hospital nights, I needed somewhere far away, just me, a fire, and the sound of the wind through the trees. The cabin was smaller than I expected. 1 room, 1 window, and a single oil lamp hanging crooked over a table. The ranger who gave me the key barely looked me in the eye. He just said, "Oh, don't call out after dark." I thought he was joking. The first 2 days were perfect. I hiked, cooked, and wrote in my journal. The air tasted clean. I could hear my own heartbeat. It felt like the forest was finally letting me breathe again. But on the 3rd night, just after sunset, I heard someone whisper my name from outside. It was faint, almost playful, like a friend testing how far they could tease before I reacted. I froze. The nearest house was miles away. My car was the only one on the gravel road. When I stepped outside with my flashlight, the forest was motionless. The air didn't even stir. I tried to laugh it off, told myself it was an echo. But an hour later I heard it again, louder, closer. Eli. That's my name. I went to the door, shouted, "Who's there?" My voice bounced off the trees and came back softer. But then over the echo came another voice, my own, answering from the woods. "I'm here." The light flickered. The forest swallowed the sound like it never happened. I shut the door, locked it, and wrote everything down, just to prove to myself it was real. The next morning I found boot prints outside, bare. Small ones leading into the tree line, only one set, mine. I left the cabin that day, drove into town, and told the clerk I was cutting my trip short. She didn't look surprised. She asked if I'd heard it yet. "Heard what?" I said. "The echo that knows your name." That night I slept in my truck. But at 2:43 a.m., I woke to someone tapping on the window. My phone screen lit up on its own, voice recorder open. The red dot was blinking. Playback started automatically. "Eli, come back inside." Then my own voice whispering, "I never left." When morning came, the road behind me was gone, replaced by trees where the gravel had been. The forest had closed its mouth around me. I don't remember how I got out. I woke up 3 days later in a ranger station. Dehydrated, my journal soaked like it had been buried. The ranger said hikers found me walking along the riverbank talking to myself. I checked my phone. The last recording was still there. I played it one more time just to be sure I wasn't crazy. The voice on the tape said my name again. Only this time it wasn't asking me to come back. It was thanking me. Now every night before I sleep, I hear it again, faint and patient, waiting somewhere in the dark. It sounds exactly like me. I used to spend every fall, hunting season out in the backcountry, near Cold Hollow Ridge. I liked the quiet, the smell of wet pine, the way the forest felt untouched by time. There was no phone signal that deep, so I carried an old CB radio to keep in touch with the ranger station or other hunters. That year I was alone. My brother was supposed to come, but his kid got sick, so it was just me, a thermos of coffee, and that battered radio. The first night passed fine. The second night was different. Around midnight, as I was cleaning my rifle by the fire, the radio crackled. Not static, actual words, faint and panicked.
"Help! Please, anyone!"
The voice was rough, male, somewhere between whispering and crying. I pressed the button. "Copy that. You okay out there?" No response. Just a low hiss. Then, after a few seconds, my own voice came through. "Yeah, I'm fine." I froze. It wasn't a perfect match, like listening to a recording of yourself that had been slowed down, just enough to sound wrong. I turned the volume down, thinking it was interference, but the transmission came back clearer. "Don't go outside." That time I didn't say anything. I just stared at the cabin door. A minute later, the same voice, mine, spoke again, more urgent. It's not me talking now. The fire popped. The air inside the cabin went cold, like someone had opened every window. I killed the lantern, sat still, listening. Then came footsteps, soft, careful, circling the cabin. I counted 3 laps before the sound stopped, right beside the wall where the radio sat. The voice returned, whispering so close it fuzzed with static. "If you can hear me, don't look at the window." Every instinct told me not to listen, but I couldn't help it. I looked. Someone was standing outside, same jacket, same hat, same flashlight. Me. He smiled just barely. The reflection of the firelight flickered across his face, but his eyes stayed black. I grabbed my rifle, aimed, and shouted for him to back away. Instead, the voice on the radio said, perfectly calm, "If you shoot, you'll miss. You always do." The figure tilted his head like he was waiting for me to remember something. Then he whispered through the radio, "You left the door unlocked." The knob turned. I fired once, through the door, through the air, through whatever that thing was. The echo rolled through the trees for what felt like forever. When I finally opened the door, the clearing was empty. I hiked out that night, left everything, gear, food, radio. 2 days later, rangers found my camp exactly how I left it. Only one thing had changed. They said the radio was still on, and it was broadcasting. A single message looping over and over, "Don't answer." That was 3 years ago. I still hunt, but I never go that deep anymore. I keep my new radio turned off, but sometimes late at night I hear static humming from the corner of my garage. Once I swear I heard it whisper my name, and underneath that just barely a second voice saying, "Copy that." I run a small business renting out vacation cabins in northern Montana. I inherited the property from my uncle after he passed. 10 cabins, scattered around a lake, surrounded by thick spruce forest, peaceful, quiet, perfect for people who want to disappear for a weekend. I never believed in ghost stories. I still don't, not really. But I know what I saw on those tapes. When I first took over, I decided to modernize things. Installed motion sensors, cameras, and smart locks. Guests liked the idea of extra security. Everything ran smoothly for a while. Then, about 6 months in, people started canceling mid-stay. No explanations. Just messages like, "We're leaving tonight. Full refund, please." I thought it was bad reviews or bad luck, until one couple left a note. "There's someone in the cabin with us." I checked the footage. The cameras in the living room and kitchen showed nothing unusual. Until around 3:12 a.m., a shadow crossed the hallway, thin and fast. The motion sensor went off, but the door never opened. The next morning, I drove out to inspect the place myself. Everything looked normal. I figured maybe it was a glitch, but when I checked the security log, I noticed something strange. The same movement pattern. Same time, every single night. Not just that cabin. All of them. Always the same timestamp. Always the same shape, moving from one end of the cabin to the other. I called the system manufacturer thinking maybe it was a synchronization bug. The tech on the phone said the footage didn't look like data corruption. He He said it looked like someone was walking room to room. Then he asked the question I still can't get out of my head. Why does it show up in all the cameras at once? I went through the older tapes my uncle left behind, dusty VHS labeled with dates. I played one from 1998, same timestamp, same shadow. The last tape I found wasn't labeled at all. It started normally, guests unpacking, laughing, a dog barking in the background. Then the camera shook. A man was filming himself, whispering, "It's still here. Even when we leave, it stays." He turned the camera toward the window. For a second, I saw the reflection of something standing behind him. Long arms, pale face watching. Then static. I checked the cabin's logbooks later. That family had never checked out. No forwarding address, no report, nothing. I stopped renting out the cabins 2 weeks after that. I told people the place was under renovation, but sometimes the smart system still sends motion alerts to my phone, 3:12 a.m. Every night, every cabin still empty. I deleted the app. Didn't matter. The notifications kept coming. And the last one wasn't from any cabin at all. You know, I thought I could handle this. Just stories, right? But after listening to those first 4, something feels wrong. It's not just the words, it's the pattern. The timestamps, the sounds in the background. Every single recording ends the same way. Silence, then static, then a faint knock. Always 3 times. At first I thought it was coincidence, audio distortion. But last night, while editing, my headphones picked up something that wasn't on the original track. A whisper, almost too low to catch. I boosted the volume and heard a sentence that made my stomach drop. "Stop reading." I laughed. I shouldn't have, because a few seconds later I heard my own voice reply, "I can't." I didn't record that part. Some of you messaged me after the last upload saying these places sound familiar. A few of you even claimed you'd stayed in one of the cabins. One person sent me coordinates, said they matched. Something carved into a tree outside their rental. I checked. The coordinates point to the same forest, the same one from the ranger's files. I keep telling myself it's a coincidence, a viral loop, that the more I share, the more people think they've seen something similar. But the messages keep coming, like the stories are spreading on their own. So here's a warning. If you recognize any of these places, if something about them feels too real, don't go looking. Don't search the coordinates. Don't even replay the tapes, because the next story, the one I'm about to tell you, that's where things started to follow me back. It started with a storm, the kind that shakes the mountains like they're breathing. There were 4 of us, me, Nate, Chris, and Jess, college, friends who thought spending a long weekend in a remote cabin during thunder season was adventure. We brought beer, old horror DVDs, and just enough confidence to think nothing bad ever happens to people like us. The first night was all laughter and static-filled music. The second night, the power went out. It was around 9 when the lights flickered and died. Jess joked about ghosts. Chris groaned about the food in the fridge. I grabbed a flashlight, shined it toward the back shed where the generator sat half buried in mud. Nate volunteered to fix it. He'd done electrical work before. We watched him cross the yard, light bobbing like a firefly in the rain. 10 minutes passed, 15, then 20. No sound. "Maybe he's messing with us," Jess said. But her voice cracked. When I finally went to check, I found the shed door wide open. The generator was still running, loud, steady, but there was no sign of Nate. I called his name, no answer. Just the rain pounding on the tin roof. I was halfway back to the cabin when the light flickered again, and Nate stepped out from behind a tree. He was soaked, shivering, face pale as milk. "You get it fixed?" I asked. He nodded too fast. Yeah, it's fine now." Something in his voice wasn't right. Too calm, too certain. Back inside, Jess hugged him, relieved. He didn't hug her back. He just sat near the fire, staring at the flames like he'd forgotten what heat was. When he finally spoke, his words were flat. "Don't go outside again." Chris laughed nervously, but I saw it then, Nate's hands. His fingernails were dark, packed with something gray. Grease, I thought, until I realized it wasn't grease. It looked like ash. The generator ran all night, loud, too loud. None of us slept. At sunrise, the noise finally stopped. I went out with Chris to check it. The machine was still running, but the fuel gauge was empty. The sound wasn't coming from the engine at all. It was coming from inside the metal casing. Chris killed the power, and the noise died instantly. Then he leaned closer, frowning. There was something jammed inside the vent, something white. He reached in with a stick and pried it loose. It wasn't a wire. It was a tooth. Then another. And another. We ran back inside. Nate was gone. His boots were still by the door, but his coat was missing. We followed the muddy prints into the trees until they just stopped, like he'd vanished mid-step. When we returned to the shed, the generator was humming again. Though none of us had touched it, the panel light blinked steady green, like it was breathing. Jess wanted to leave that morning. I didn't argue, but before we pulled away, I glanced back one last time. The shed door was still open, and standing just inside the shadows was Nate, smiling that too calm smile, lips cracked and gray. He raised his hand, pointed at the generator, and mouthed something I couldn't hear. When I turned the radio on for company during the drive, it was already tuned to a dead channel, but under the static I could swear I heard his voice. Still humming, still running. I rented the cabin because I wanted silence. After months of sleepless nights and city noise crawling under my skin, I just wanted to breathe again. The listing promised no neighbors for miles, a fireplace, and a wraparound porch facing endless pines. It was perfect. Too perfect. The first 2 nights were peaceful, the kind of quiet that makes you forget the world exists. But on the third night, around 3 a.m., something woke me. Not a sound exactly, more like the absence of sound. Even the forest had gone still. No crickets, no wind, and then 3 knocks. Slow, deliberate, and wrong somehow. Like whoever was outside wasn't knocking on the door, but through it. I froze, barely breathing. When I finally found the courage to check, I opened the door to empty darkness. The air smelled like metal and rain. The porch light flickered, but no one was there. The next morning, I told myself it had to be a branch, maybe the wind. But when I went outside, there were footprints on the porch. Bare ones, too long. The toes dragged like the person had been pulled backward. I decided to leave that night. Packed my bags, loaded the car. But before I could start the engine, I saw it, something carved into the cabin's front door. 3 symbols. Not letters, not numbers. Just jagged scratches, each about the size of a handprint. I snapped a photo, thinking maybe I could look it up later. That was my mistake. When I checked my phone that evening, the photo was gone. In its place was a blank black screen and a single audio file named, "Listen." I shouldn't have pressed play. The file was faint, like a recording made from the bottom of a well. A voice whispered, "Don't leave yet." You haven't answered. Then the same 3 knocks played back, closer this time. I threw the phone onto the passenger seat and drove until my hands hurt from gripping the wheel. I didn't stop until sunrise. When I finally looked in the rearview mirror, my heart nearly stopped. The cabin was gone. Just gone. The road behind me ended in trees and fog, no sign of where I'd come from. And then my phone lit up again, without me touching it. A notification. Just 1 line. "You still owe the answer." Since that night, I've heard it 3 more times. Always after midnight. Always 3 knocks. Sometimes on hotel doors. Once on the trunk of my car while I was driving. People ask me why I don't go back, why I don't face whatever it is. But I've learned something. It doesn't matter where I go. The silence always finds me first. And when it does, I know the knocking won't be far behind. I used to think loneliness was harmless, peaceful even. That's why I took the job. Maintenance tech for a weather station deep in the Rockies. Just me, the snow, and the hum of machines. The station was built in the 70s, half buried in permafrost. It groaned when the wind hit just right, like the mountain was breathing through its vents. My only connection to the outside world was a radio line, old analog but reliable. Or so I thought. On my 3rd week there, I woke to static. The radio was on, even though I'd switched it off the night before. I leaned in, half asleep, ready to kill the noise. Then I heard it. A voice. Soft, distant. Station. "Sick copy?" I answered, relieved to hear anyone at all. "Station 6, go ahead." But the voice didn't respond. It just repeated my words back. A perfect echo. Same tone, same rhythm, except for one difference. When I said "go ahead," the echo said, "go below." That was impossible. There was no below. I checked the building's blueprint later that day. 2 floors, both above ground. But the next morning, I found a hatch in the storage room. Metal, old, no handle, no hinge. Just frost sealing the edges like the mountain didn't want it opened. The radio came alive again that night. "Go below," the voice whispered. This time it sounded closer. Sleep-deprived curiosity got the better of me. I chipped the ice away, pried the hatch open. A frozen draft blew up from the dark, and for a moment, I thought I saw breath rising, not mine, but something else exhaling from beneath. The ladder went down farther than the building should have allowed. Maybe 50 feet. The air grew warmer as I descended. The walls slick and pulsing like they weren't made of metal anymore. At the bottom was another room, no lights. Just a faint red glow from an old radio transmitter. It was broadcasting something rhythmic, a pulse, like a heartbeat. And then the voice came again. "Copy?" I turned the dial, but every channel played the same thing. My own voice. Distorted, saying, "Don't answer." I climbed back up as fast as I could, sealed the hatch, and stacked everything I could find on top of it. But even sealed, I could hear it, the low hum of that signal pulsing through the floor, syncing with my heartbeat. The next morning, all the equipment displays showed a temperature reading of 273.5 degrees, absolute zero, impossible. I reported it to HQ. They said Station 6 had been offline for 30 years. "You must be mistaken," they told me. "That facility doesn't exist anymore." I didn't argue, just packed my things and left. But sometimes when I'm driving through the mountains, the radio cuts out and the static turns into breathing, and through the white noise I hear the same faint transmission. "Station 6, copy?" I never respond anymore, because last time I did, the signal whispered my name, and the frost on my windshield spelled out the words, "Go below." I found the first tape at a flea market outside Spokane. It was labeled in smudged red ink. Cabin recordings, 1983. The seller swore it came from a police evidence box sold at auction. He laughed when I asked if it was haunted. I wish I'd never asked. The cassette was warped, half melted, the kind of relic you keep for curiosity's sake. I didn't even own a player, so I ordered one online and forgot about it for a week. When it arrived, I set it up in my basement, hit play, and expected nothing but static. Instead, I heard breathing. "Heavy, close." Then a voice whispered, "If you found this, you shouldn't have." It was followed by the faint creak of floorboards and something dragging. A chair, maybe. The sound went on for 8 minutes before the tape ended with 3 knocks. That would have been creepy enough, but when I tried to eject it, the button jammed. The player started again on its own. Different tape. Different time. I don't remember putting in another cassette. This time I heard a man's voice saying, "I found them all." His tone was trembling, reverent, like he was confessing something sacred. Then I heard a woman crying in the background, soft at first, then hysterical, until it cut out mid-breath. When I finally yanked the cord from the wall, the tape deck kept spinning. No power, no sound, just that whirring motion. The next morning I smashed it to pieces and threw it out. That night someone left another cassette on my porch. No note, no packaging, just the same handwriting. Cabin recordings, 1984. I didn't touch it. But when I came downstairs the next morning, the tape was already sitting in the player. I hadn't even replaced it. Curiosity, or maybe something darker, made me press play again. This time I heard my own voice, describing the same events. The flea market, the first tape, even this exact moment. Then a click. A voice whispered, "Story complete." The tape ejected itself. I stared at it for a long time before realizing something. The label didn't say 1984 anymore. It said 2025. I threw it in the fire that night, watched the plastic melt into ash. But as it burned, I could hear faint laughter coming from the speakers upstairs. Since then, blank cassettes keep appearing wherever I move. My car, hotel rooms, even in my mailbox. Always labeled cabin recordings. Always waiting. I don't play them anymore. But sometimes, late at night, I can hear a faint spinning sound in the walls, like a tape rewinding itself. And I know somewhere someone's listening to me, recording this story, adding it to their collection. I work for a forestry department in northern Montana, and I've seen some strange things. Sinkholes opening overnight, Trees stripped bare like something peeled them, but nothing comes close to what I found near Miller's Ridge. We got a report from hikers claiming a cabin had appeared overnight. Thought it was a prank. When we got there, the GPS coordinates didn't match anything on our maps. Just blank terrain where the cabin supposedly stood. Still, we hiked out, me and my partner, Lewis. 3 miles into the forest, there it was. Old timber, moss growing in the seams, windows blacked out with soot. Looked abandoned for decades. The weird part? The ground around it was untouched. No path, no signs of construction. Like it had just grown there. We circled it, calling out, but no one answered. Then Lewis noticed something carved into the doorframe. Numbers, coordinates, different ones. We wrote them down and decided to check them later. But when we turned to leave, the forest didn't look the same. The trees were closer, thicker. The path we'd come through had vanished, replaced by solid brush. Lewis tried the radio, just static. The cabin door creaked open behind us. I don't know why, but I stepped inside first. The air was cold and heavy, like being underwater. Every surface was covered in ash. There was furniture, but it looked melted. Shapes that might have been chairs. A table sagging in the center, and then the floor shifted. Not creaked, moved. The whole cabin tilted like something underneath was breathing. "Out!" I yelled, but Lewis didn't move. He was staring at the wall, eyes wide. I followed his gaze and saw something scratched into the wood in frantic slashes. Stop moving it. Then came the sound, a low dragging rumble from outside, like the cabin was sliding across the ground. We bolted through the door, tripping over roots that hadn't been there seconds ago. The trees were moving too, closing in, their trunks twisting like muscles. The cabin groaned behind us, shifting again, dragging itself deeper into the forest. By the time we reached open ground, the noise stopped. The cabin was gone. No trail, no marks, nothing but disturbed leaves and silence. Back at headquarters, we checked the coordinates carved on the door frame. They pointed to 3 different locations, each over 100 miles apart. All places where, according to old logging records, cabins had mysteriously disappeared decades ago. Lewis quit a week later, said the forest wasn't staying still anymore. I stayed, but sometimes when I'm patrolling near Miller's Ridge, I hear it. That low dragging sound, moving somewhere between the trees. And last month I got a new GPS ping from our mapping system. A structure suddenly registered in a place where nothing should be. Same shape, same size. Coordinates match the next ridge over, which means the cabin's still moving. And it's getting closer. I never believed in haunted places, only haunted people. That was before I saw the reflection. The last story I recorded came from a man named Carter, a photographer who'd been documenting abandoned structures across the Pacific Northwest. He'd heard about a phantom cabin that appeared near frozen lakes, only visible at dusk. He sent me photos to verify. One of them still makes my hands shake when I look at it. In the picture you see a lake, perfectly still, surrounded by pines heavy with snow. The sky's pale orange, the kind that feels too quiet. Nothing unusual until you flip the image. Because in the reflection on the water, there's a cabin, but not in the real landscape. No path, no structure, no shadow where it should be. Just that single, perfect reflection, like the cabin existed only beneath the surface. Carter said he went back the next day. The lake was frozen over, but under the ice. The shape of the cabin was still visible, closer this time, as if rising toward him. He broke through the ice to get a better shot. That was his last message. 2 weeks later, his camera was found near the lake's edge. The final photo showed his own reflection staring down, but the figure in the ice wasn't him. It was someone else, standing behind him inside the reflection of that impossible cabin. I thought it was another fake, another viral stunt. But last month, while editing his footage, I caught something in my own reflection on the monitor. A flicker, faint but unmistakable. A window, a door, the same cabin. I brushed it off as pareidolia. Our brains love patterns. But it kept appearing, clearer each time. In my laptop screen, my bathroom mirror, even in puddles after the rain. Always behind me, always closer. Last night I covered every mirror in my house. Felt stupid doing it. But the air felt wrong, heavy, humid, like the lake in Carter's photos. I tried to sleep, Around 2:17 a.m., I woke up to the sound of dripping water. The mirrors were uncovered, all of them. And in the largest one, the one in the hallway, I saw it again. The cabin faintly glowing behind me. The reflection shimmered like the surface of a pond, and for a moment, I could hear faint knocking coming from inside the glass. 3 times. I called out, "Who's there?" And the reflection of my mouth didn't move. It just smiled. When I blinked, the cabin was gone. The mirrors were dry. But now, every reflection I see is slightly off. Sometimes I move first, sometimes the reflection does. And when I record these stories, my mic picks up faint audio underneath, water dripping steadily. Some of you might say it's all connected, that every cabin I've talked about is the same one. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's not a place at all. Maybe it's a reflection of every story ever told about it, bleeding through each new version. And if that's true, then I think I've finally found the source. Because just before I started recording tonight, I caught one last reflection in the black screen of my camera. The cabin, door open, waiting. And this time, I saw my own reflection step through it, while I stayed right here. I wasn't supposed to make it back. The morning after the last recording, I woke up to find my laptop still running, red light blinking, file still recording. Except, I hadn't touched it since the night before. The timer showed 6 hours, 31 minutes, 19 seconds. When I hit play, I expected silence. Instead, I heard breathing. Not mine, too slow, too wet. And underneath it, a faint humming, steady and mechanical. Like a generator, the same one from Story 5. Then came the knock. 3 times. The sound was distant at first, but with each playback, it got clearer, closer. I deleted the file. It came back. Changed names, jumped folders, appeared on drives I hadn't connected in weeks. It's here now, too. Hidden somewhere in this recording you're listening to. I've tried everything. New hard drive, new microphone, new city. But every night when I close my eyes, I hear the stories blending together, voices overlapping, each whispering their last words. Nate humming in the rain. The ranger's radio repeating, "Go below." The woman still waiting for her knock. Carter's reflection still smiling back. They all end the same way. Silence, then static, then that hum. I think I understand now. The cabins aren't places, they're echoes. Recordings that remember. Every time someone listens, the stories replay themselves, looking for a new voice to continue the pattern. That's why I keep talking, why I keep sharing them. Because the moment I stop, the silence moves closer. And if you've listened this far, then maybe you've heard it too, the faint hum under my words. Don't rewind it. Don't isolate the sound, because if you do, you'll hear what I heard. Your own name whispered back through the static. The generator, the frozen signal, the reflection. They're all the same voice, all the same place. And maybe it isn't haunting us. Maybe it's calling us home. The first time I recorded one of these, I thought I was documenting other people's nightmares. But now I think they were documenting mine. Every word, every pause already written somewhere before I ever spoke it. I've started to see things in the corner of my screens. Faint flickers. Outlines of a cabin door half open, waiting for the next story. I know if I walk toward it, the sound will stop. The hum will fade. But someone else will start recording. Maybe you. So, before I end this, I'll leave you with a warning. Or maybe an invitation. It depends on what you believe. If tonight you hear 3 knocks, don't answer. Don't look. Don't even move. Just listen. Because if you listen long enough, you'll realize the sound isn't outside. It's coming from the recording itself, and it's been getting louder since the moment you pressed play.